Look at anything red right now. Are you sure the red you're seeing is the same red someone else sees? You can't check. Nobody can. And that should bother you more than it does. Here's the part that sounds impossible until you sit with it. The light bouncing off that object has no color at all. None. What's actually hitting your eyes is electromagnetic radiation at a certain wavelength, roughly 700 nanometers for what you call red. A wavelength isn't red. It's just a number. Color doesn't exist out there in the world. It exists somewhere behind your eyes and nowhere else. Your eye contains 3 types of cone cells, each tuned to respond most strongly to a different range of wavelengths, roughly short, medium, and long. When light hits your retina, these cones fire in different ratios depending on the wavelength, and your brain takes those 3 overlapping signals and builds an experience out of them. Not detects, builds. The redness you see isn't a property of the object. It's a construction your visual cortex performs in real time, milliseconds after the light arrives. The philosopher John Locke noticed something strange about this back in 1690. He separated what he called primary qualities, things like shape and motion that exist in the object itself, from secondary qualities like color, taste, and smell, which he argued exist only in the observer. An apple has a certain surface structure that reflects certain wavelengths. That part is real. The redness is something your mind adds afterward. When you and I both look at a stop sign, and we both call it red, how do you know we're having the same experience? Philosophers call this the inverted qualia problem. Imagine my brain is wired so that what I experience when I look at red is identical to what you experience when you look at green. I've just always called that experience red since childhood because that's what everyone taught me to call it. Every stop sign I've ever seen, every apple, every fire truck, all of it might be producing an internal experience in my head that would look completely alien to you. Nobody can compare experiences directly. We can only compare words, and the words match perfectly even if the underlying experience doesn't. There's no test that could ever catch this. Every single behavior test would come back identical. I'd stop at stop signs. I'd pick the red apple. The mismatch, if it exists, is permanently sealed off from any way of checking. Some evidence suggests these differences might not just be a thought experiment. A 2015 study on color blindness estimated that roughly 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women have some form of color vision deficiency, most commonly a reduced ability to distinguish red from green. Many of them don't find out until adulthood, sometimes not until a school vision test flags it, without ever needing to know their internal experience was different. And color isn't even fixed the way it feels like it should be. In 2015, a photo of a dress went viral because people were furiously arguing about whether it was blue and black or white and gold. The neuroscientist Bevil Conway later explained that the disagreement came down to how each individual brain was unconsciously correcting for what it assumed the lighting source was. Some brains assumed daylight and subtracted blue tones, revealing white and gold. Others assumed artificial light and did the opposite. Nobody was wrong. Ask yourself how much smaller, unnoticed variation might exist across 7 billion brains, all day, every day, without a viral photo ever forcing the disagreement into the open. There's a name for people who take this further. The Himba people of Namibia use a single word for what English speakers would call both blue and green, but they distinguish between shades of green that look identical to most Western eyes. Researchers running matching tests found Himba speakers were slower to separate blue from green than English speakers, but dramatically faster at spotting subtle green variations most people can't consciously tell apart at all. The color wasn't just labeled differently. The perceptual boundary itself sat in a different place, which means the very edges of what counts as one color versus another aren't hardwired into the universe. They're negotiated culturally, generation after generation, and then installed so early in each of us that by adulthood it feels like plain fact instead of a decision someone else made a long time ago. So here's where that leaves you. Every red you've ever seen, every blue sky, every green field was manufactured entirely inside your skull. using raw material that has no color at all. You've spent your whole life inside a private theater, watching a show that only you can see, using words borrowed from other people to describe it, with no way to ever confirm the show looks the same to anyone else in the audience. And somehow, that theater still works. You still stop at the light. You still know which apple to pick. Billions of people, each running their own private, unverifiable version of color, somehow built a world that functions perfectly well together anyway. Maybe that's the actual point. Not that the color is real, that the agreement is.